Budget and Finance Committee meeting will come to order at 5 p.m. on Monday, May 1st. Let the record show that all the members are present. Let the record also show that Alderman Cox has now been replaced by Alderman Gavigan. I move for approval of the April 23 and April 23 special call minutes. Second. All those in favor say aye. Passes 3-0. Is there any citizen comment? Seeing none. Item number 1, discussion on fiscal year 22-23 update. Hi, Deb.
Hello, good evening. I'm Deborah Dutcher, Finance Director here at the City of Spring Hill. And I sent over very late last night a bunch of financial reports for you to review. There's different formats here, and I'm kind of trying to see which format you want to see on a regular basis, which one you might want to see on a quarterly basis. And that the Spring Hill Executive Summary Classification one, there's 2 copies of it. One has the revenue, but the revenue throws off the other departments' numbers a bit because most of our revenue is in the general fund. And I didn't know, and of course you've got a line-by-line detail of everything, which is probably more than you ever wanted to see.
Deb, for myself, I thought there was a version of the executive summary that was about 10-ish, 11-ish pages long or so. I found that in the treasurer's report to be the most useful.
Okay.
As far as a, quick monthly glance. I did not read every line in the 70 whatever page line item report.
You didn't need to fall asleep last night?
But I do think that's important information to publish quarterly nonetheless. Alderman Linville, Alderman Gavigan, any additional feedback for staff? Ms. Kasky.
Yeah, I think that is the one at the department by classification level.
Yep, Spring Hill Executive Summary by classification level without revenue.
Right.
And then the treasurer's report.
Yep.
Okay, if you just want those 2 reports, and then any others you want to have, like quarterly?
I would say all the rest quarterly.
Okay.
At least for the first quarter or 2 here until we can kind of.
How much additional effort does it require to produce those?
Hours and hours. It's not too bad.
Okay.
It's not too bad.
For a quarter or 2, I would say do it all, and if we can,
I'm great with that. Yeah.
Pare it back going forward after that.
Are you okay with the OneNote dissemination of that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
And then we'll put it into the board packet for the next meetings, for the BOMA meetings next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that works well.
So all of these for the next few months?
No, just
these 2 you wanted for
executive summary and treasurer report.
And then the rest quarterly?
Yeah, and then at the close of the quarter, so.
Okay, great.
Well, you just gave us the end of April, so do it again at the end of June.
Well, actually, this is through March. So, okay. And we do have a few more changes to do on the budget amendment, so we'll get those posted, and then we'll be moving stuff around and setting up new accounts to get into a more standard format for all the different levels.
All right.
So we'll do that.
Anything additional on item number 1? Item number 2, bank reconciliation update.
Yes, Joseph just posted the general fund November bank rec today, so he's done with November. The general fund is a lot more difficult because of the volume of transactions that hit it. So he's saying that usually takes about 8 days, where the water and sewer fund, he's down to about 4 days to do a bank rec. So he's working its way through them, and hopefully we'll get caught up very soon.
So he's through November, so we're 5 month, 40 days in their arrears.
Yeah, just on the general fund, and the water and sewer is only a month behind, and the little ones are up to date.
Up to date.
Let's just make sure that it's reported here that 8 days for a general fund reconciliation and 4 days for a water and sewer fund is half a month and an unacceptable number.
think everybody agrees with that. Alderman Linville?
I guess the primary question that I have that asking is, do we have any projection for when we'll be caught up? I know everyone would want that answer to that question, but I'd love for any feedback from finance on that.
Well, we're doing the best we can. I can't give you a definite. I mean, I can have him work this week and next week, and he'll have the water and sewer fund up to date. He was working on getting all those up to date, and I said, let's do November and December of general fund just to get out of 2022. But he did say it was definitely challenging. So hopefully our new bank relationship will help with that.
I guess the other question I have, is there any resource that you all need, I guess, other than staff power to be able to
Here's
move
the
that forward?
the problem. We had 6 different accounting / CPAs in here, and we finally, between Deb and Joseph, found a rhythm. I really don't want to mess with it.
Sure. I'm just asking, is there additional resources needed to
Yeah,
make sure
I
that we
mean,
can progress quicker?
We threw a lot of stuff on the wall trying to keep it from being this far behind. And once we found a solution, I haven't wanted to mess with success, even though it may not be moving as quickly. It's actually happening, which is more than I can say when we had everybody else trying. But if you figure that it's taking him, he's not going to catch up more than 2 months in 1 month. So, and then by that time you're going to be 1 more month behind. So, I mean, it seems to me like by the end of June we can get caught up and be done by the end of June. But I think anything more than that is probably putting too much pressure on staff, and
Okay.
they've got a lot pressure right now. Also, as going into pooled cash, we've asked Joseph, who just went through this conversion before coming to work for us, to lead that. Deb has asked him to do that. So at some point, we got to pull him off a little bit because the movement to pooled cash and the resetting of all the systems that lead into pooled cash should get that 8 days down to something much more reasonable.
Something much more manageable in the technology that we're going to be able to leverage with the new vendor.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, 'cause
Thank
it's
you.
not just, here, you do this part. We have actually our interns going, when he prints off all the monthly reports, he goes through and does the small ones, and then he'll go through and highlight the even matches on the water and sewer and on the general fund to give Joseph a head start on doing them. But it's not something that you could just set someone down and say, here, do this bank rec. It should be, but it's not.
When is our intern leaving us?
He is going to be here through the beginning of August. He had said that he would stay till the beginning of August, and then he'll be leaving to get ready for college.
He's been a very valuable resource for us.
He's
Work them to death.
yes, he's been very good, very accurate. And he'll be a lawyer someday, so he's going to Belmont for law school in August.
A law school.
Is it? Oh,
Questionable
good.
That's where I went.
Oh, good,
Questionable.
good. He was deciding between that and Louisville, and he's like, I want to be in Nashville. Yeah. So.
All right, well,
So-
we'll talk about our hiring standards.
Oh.
Item number 3, discussion and possible recommendation on the bank vendor interviews. Deb, I see you distributed a memo
I certainly
on
did.
some of the follow-up work. Would a fair synopsis be that staff's preference as we go in the direction of Pinnacle?
We had a real good input from Pinnacle. I mean, they were here the next week, all in force, all in our office to meet with us, and they just, I think, have a lot of positives that they could bring to the city.
So I think just to level set here, we were talking about Pinnacle and Fifth Third being
The narrowed down list.
the clear favorites coming out of the interviews. Were we ever able to gain any additional clarity on the Fifth Third technology platform and what that might or might not be able to
Well,
provide
I
for us?
did talk to them about that. They didn't really have a lot of information for me. They said, well, we've worked with Tyler for our Kentucky place, and we got the set up for that. Their executive AP
I hadn't heard that before, but just so you know, all Kentucky schools are on the Munis platform of Tyler,
And, okay.
not the Encode
Oh, yes, it was
platform.
definitely Munis. They do have an AP and AR platform. The only savings AP would be is just not printing checks, so that's not really a good savings. And Pinnacle also has different services like that as well.
So they weren't, Fifth Third really wasn't able to identify that anything that was,
No, I asked them and they
Proprietary
kind
to
of went, can you answer that? And so.
well, I mean, that was the,
Well,
that was
the
the
reason I-
attractive part of Fifth Third, and then Pinnacle had a better rate structure, so
Yeah.
they weren't able to clarify it further. That's,
Yeah, because the meeting I set up was specifically to talk about technology and what they could bring to us.
Alderman Linville?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Pinnacle does integrate directly with Tyler. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's all downloading files and having them imported into the system. It doesn't seem like any of the banks could actually be tied in, which you really probably wouldn't want them to have access to your system anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Alderman Gavigan?
So, I thought the bank had to have a branch in the city limits. Wasn't aware that Pinnacle did. Isn't that a disqualitative factor?
The qualifying factor is that we have to do deposits on a daily basis, and Pinnacle is arranged to have a free courier service come every day and pick up the deposits for us, so that not only saves our time, it saves someone driving back and forth to the bank every day. So we looked actually as that as a very good positive.
So I was under the impression that that disqualified a bank. They had to have branch operations in Spring Hill, and Pinnacle doesn't. So, I mean, wasn't that on the RFP, that was a mandatory fact?
It
mandatory
was,
factor?
but they asked me if they found a workaround, whether I would consider their proposal, and I thought that was a very amicable. I think that's our thing, because we have to drive, but having them pick it up, it would be a lot easier than driving to Fifth Third on Main
Yeah,
Street.
it's a standard
Sure, I
that
think that we
set.
just
It's
want
not
to
a
support
standard.
our, oh, sorry, Matt.
Go ahead.
I just thought we would want to support the banks that choose to do business in the city.
Well, they are.
Is that not the case?
They are expanding, and they're, have their eye on
Are they
Spring
gonna
Hill
open
as
a
a
branch
site.
here?
Yeah,
They are going to open a branch in Spring Hill?
they would like to. I mean, who knows when, but
Have they made public notice of that, or
No.
is it just a?
no, it was just, we're, always expanding. And
So if they don't open up a branch in Spring Hill, what would be the plan then?
I did not put a contingent on having them have a branch in Spring
It
Hill.
was a contingency in the RFP, right?
But any issues in the RFP can be waived if there is a belief that their alternative is as good of offer as what.
Okay.
I mean, and that's obviously this board's decision to say, no, we don't think it's good enough, that it's a good enough swap. But Deb said, yes, in her evaluation, it was a decent enough swap out that the courier service would work for her. If the board says, no, we really want to do business with a bank in the city, then they can choose, I guess, the alternative, which was Fifth
certainly.
Third.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I think my perspective is more of, let's support the businesses that are here, that have chosen to do business in Spring Hill. That's just my take on it. Banks that find Spring Hill to be an attractive place, I think that those banks should be given precedence, and I think it should continue to be a disqualifying factor that they don't have a branch in Spring Hill.
Ms. Caskey?
I'm sorry.
Deb, remind me, what was our intended timeline now
We-
for the board to make a decision here in May, or?
We were going to
First part
make
of
a
June.
decision in May. We want to be converted by July 1st, so that the new year is with the new bank and the new pooled cash system, to sort of have that be a fresh start as we switch from one bank to the other.
Okay, so we need a resolution on the agenda in 2 weeks for BOMA authorizing selection. So I'm gonna move that the Budget and Finance Committee favorably recommend Pinnacle as the bank vendor of choice, finding that they're best qualified and suiting the needs of the RFP.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 2-1. Item number 4, discussion on internal service funds and cost accounting.
Okay. When the Budget Amendment 1 was put together, they had removed the, oh, go ahead, Pam.
First part of this conversation is, are we good to present to you for 24 budget, 23-24 budget, a movement of information technology, GIS, fleet, and engineering out of the general fund and place in a new fund entitled Internal Service Funds? There are two ways to do this. I am giving you my preferred option. The other one is just as good, although maybe a little more numbers to keep up with. Option one would be to consolidate all four of those departments into one fund that was called Internal Service Fund. The other option would be to set up four funds, each of them standing alone and being consistent of one department. That would mean the creation of four new fund numbers. Internal Service Fund would create one new fund number. I've given you a sample of how that would look, and we've given you some stuff straight out of Gaffer. You know, I think, I certainly believe that there is a definite benefit to making sure that costs are appropriately allocated, and that you're being fair to the various funds, not just the general fund, but the various funds, so they don't carry too much of the weight of something. I also think it gives you the best cost accounting. And I guess finally, the only thing that probably you need to know is that an internal service fund is actually an enterprise fund. Now, it is not a public enterprise fund, it's an internal enterprise fund. What that means is that any equipment that they have has to be depreciated. Any assets they have has to be depreciated like the water and sewer fund does. That to us is not a big issue because A, they don't own a lot, and B, that means we're putting money aside for the future for their replacement of that stuff, which they need. Now, I don't know what the lifetime on a hydraulic lift is, but when we need a new one, we're going to need a new one. So we've been trying to do that with the general fund as well as the internal, and having to do it with the enterprise fund. So I don't see that as a big negative. There might be a slight increase in cost in the audit because it's an extra couple of funds, but frankly, the testing ought to be the testing, right? So,
do we have any idea what that initial depreciation hit might look like?
it's not great because most of what they have is already fully depreciated. So as we replace it, it's going to start becoming a hit. But I can take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to several years ago when depreciation was introduced into the utility funds for the first time. That first year was
Brutal.
brutal as generous, yeah.
Well, GIS is some IT. We're getting ready to replace all the new servers tonight, so that'll be a new
It'd be starting
fresh. And then the engineering is mostly manpower, and so the only one that needs to be thought about is
the fleet equipment.
And on the assumption that we're going to build a new one of those eventually here soon.
Do we have to depreciate the building and the assets inside, or just the assets?
It would be both, but my recommendation would be, because we're probably going to end up having to move fleet, again, it'll be starting fresh. So it'll be a little, and I don't know what level, I wish Tyler was here, I don't know what level, other than the hydraulic lift, and there's another big piece of equipment that's in the budget this year for them to get.
We'll probably have the tire things.
Yeah, that
Tire
thing.
changer?
Yeah, tire changer.
Tire
That's the
balance?
technical term.
Yeah.
Rowdy do?
Most of their tools and equipment are under the $10,000 capitalization number.
Okay.
So it's not going to be an issue. So yeah, there will be a hit, but I don't think it'll be a huge hit.
Yeah. Alderman Linville?
Thank you. I guess one of the, I think it's, great to be able to, have additional cost accounting and, put those things where they ought to be, based on who's utilizing it. I guess one of the biggest questions that I have is, as far as like finance department's ability to support that sort of, transition, is that something we're prepared to support right now?
Well, so let's remember that in the fleet side of things, we were already billing it out and already doing that. It's no different if you're billing parts versus you're billing parts and labor, because it's the same transfer, right? So the other three are really probably going to be month-end close entries. And I've done this, and when I'm the only one doing it, I've done this. And you memorize the journal entry and you fill in the numbers, and you produce a report every month that shows you what the numbers ought to be. And so I think my bigger worry is we have what we'll call the gold standard in the fleet. We know what we spent, we know what the billing is. In GIS and IT, we can make some assumptions based on users and all of that. Engineering is a little more of a guess, but what we're assuming right now is that planning, water distribution, sewer collection, stormwater, and streets are all equal participants in the engineering services, because those guys are mostly out there watching out for those 5 departments' work. So we've been splitting that equally among the 5 departments. And there's 3 funds involved in that, which is one of the reasons why it becomes important to do it, to get the appropriate cost into the appropriate funds.
So the thought is we believe that finance can support that.
Deb?
Yes, we will support that
I mean, seriously, I do.
once things
I have-
calm down.
By the way, I
We're-
have no doubts about your willingness to support it. I just want to make sure from a capacity that we have the ability to do so.
I do think it's a memorized journal entry and a separate report that you run before you use the memorized journal entry. So I do think we can make it a lot easier. Now, fleet is the most complicated because it's on an as consumed basis. And so it varies every month based on the billing, but they've been doing that for years here. I don't know when they first started doing that, but long before I got here.
When we started doing fleet, 2016.
Okay. So I mean, that's the more complicated one, and that's not going to change.
Good deal. Thank you.
I'm going to move that we favorably recommend Resolution 2375 to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
I'm not prepared to make that resolution or that recommendation tonight.
Is that, so, okay, 2317 is 75 is a different,
It's not the same conversation.
it is a similar but different conversation. We've been doing the fleet transfers for a long time, and in Budget Amendment 1, the fleet transfers got removed.
So this is something we've already been doing, not something new that we're implementing in.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I just
So-
wanted to make sure that this is not an additional step because, I received this just now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my
No,
knowledge about this is more limited.
This is us returning fleet back to internals, to intra-fund and inter-fund transfers and picking it up in Budget Amendment 2, because we need to be able to, we don't want to stop what we have been doing since
And it's
2006.
communicating to staff now that our
Yeah.
intent is we pick it back up in budget amendment
Absolutely.
number
And
2.
let me just clarify it. Those entries are in. So
Okay.
this resolution will mean that I don't have to undo the last 7 months
Great.
worth of journal entries, which.
Can I ask one additional question?
Sure.
With this being something, is this an appropriation ordinance or item that needs to be done by ordinance, or can this be done by resolution?
Both. We're to undo it, we're proposing to do it by resolution, and then to pick it up with the budget amendment to do it by ordinance.
So it is appropriate for us to change the ordinance that the BOMA passed with a resolution? To then
We're
in the
just
future pick it up?
authorizing.
No, we wouldn't be changing the past ordinance. We'd be declaring our future
Our future intent.
Just like we
Okay.
did with the fire, remember
Which
when
isn't
we
any
did the
different
fire
than other
raises?
things that we've done.
We know that we're gonna have to change the
Right, right.
ordinance. We're giving you authorization to do it now.
Fantastic. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 3-0.
So I guess my question then is, where are we on internal service. What else do you need from us? We're getting down towards the time, if we're gonna create internal service funds, we need to restate the budget by pulling those, we call them the purple tabs, out of the budget. So how do we wanna go
Yeah,
about doing that?
I'll say I don't need anything. It sounds like Alderman Linville needs a little bit of time to digest
I'll speak for myself.
things.
Yeah, just I would love to digest the documentation that we got today, and then I feel very confident to be able to make a recommendation at the next BFAC, or if
Well,
there's
even before then, we're likely to have first reading of the budget in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
I mean.
So that's
within-
done as part of that. That should be more than enough time.
can I step out here on a limb? What I'm gonna do is take the master budget and I'm gonna create master budget IS and master budget no IS. And we're gonna pull those out and reformat the budget, and then we will deliver, you have the one, we'll deliver the other one to you. And that way, when we go to budget reading one, because it'll completely change the way we
Sure.
present the budget reading.
And just
That's
for
the
the-
reason I need to do it.
I don't have a issue with the concept as presented. I just would love
Wanna
time
understand it.
to digest the information that we've been given.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. And I apologize, we're kind of running. Okay, so we'll go ahead with that procedure, and if anybody has a hard stop that says, Pam, this doesn't make any sense to me, call me, would you please?
Item number 5, discussion possible recommendation on fiscal year 24 budget. I think it's unlikely we get to a point where we're willing to make a recommendation this evening. I think that's probably something BFAC's going to reserve till June. I must say, I don't know that I have a great deal of interest in discussing much of anything until we get through the work session later this evening, but I'll defer to Alderman Linville and
I agree.
Gavigan.
I agree with that.
So let me give you a couple pieces of info that I think we are definitely going to be moving to a 6-week adoption period instead of a 4-week adoption period. So we're going to be adopting the last meeting in June, so on the 19th. Our current, we have scrubbed through formulas, scrubbed through issues, whatever. Our current expended revenues over expenditures is $500,000. So there's a little money for you guys to make choices of course. We have allocated the positions and the new request items, but we have not actually locked those in yet. We will do that hopefully after tonight. And then we have scrubbed down the year-to-date estimates to the high side, not to the low side. So I think we've gotten everything in there that could be higher than we thought it might have been or whatever. What we haven't done is gone in and written down any of the personnel costs. So we know we've had 2 positions
There's
in
gonna be a little
plan.
pickup there.
Yeah, planning and, so we have not done any of that. It was my intent there. Right now, revenues over expenditures, we're at about 1.1 for this year. I think taxes will be a little higher than we expected, and personnel expenses will be a little lower. I hope we could get to 2 on that. That's my hope.
Take 1.1 to 2, is what you think it's going to?
Yeah, because I think there's about 700,000 in revenue that we haven't recognized.
I'll help with that $650 square foot fire station, huh?
What's a few $100s between friends?
You can make do with that, right?
I'm going to save everything else I have till the work session later tonight in June. Okay. Item number 6, items from the floor. Alderman Linville, I know you have one.
Yeah, I just wanted to get an update on the audit from fiscal year 21-22. See what progress we've made and I guess projected timeline on that.
Well, the projected timeline is to have it done by the end of May. They have submitted a lot of information that I have to spend time going through and answering questions for them. It's been a little distracted on some of the other items. So I definitely have to get focused on that and spend
And
some
so,
time.
estimated timeline is the end of May for us to complete the work, and then they will produce the report, or we think we'll have a report by the end of May?
They're planning on having the report to preview at that time.
So preview, so we might have a resolution in June to accept the findings.
Yeah, I would love to have it by June 5th, but June 19th for sure.
June 19th for sure.
All right, thank you.
And then we'll start working on the next one.
Yeah, and it is likely we're gonna have a couple of findings this year, but none that we're not already aware of. Any other items from the floor? Alderman Gavigan, Ms. Caskey, Deb. All right, and so at 5:31, meeting adjourned.